Hey everyone, my name is Jason Schmaltz and I'm a AMGA single pitch instructor, and today I'm going to show you all the steps for how to set up and take down a top rope outside. There's many variations for the procedure I'm about to show you. I'm going to try to show you the most simplest procedure and also the one that requires the most basic equipment. I think that'll help the most people in our audience, but there are more specialized pieces of equipment that you can get that we may highlight in later videos. But this is the simplest way, which usually correlates to the most safest way and the way that requires the least amount of thought to be safe, that I show all my clients who are first trying to learn how to climb outside. So let's just pretend like I just climbed to the top of Front Yard Mountain, which is my front yard, and I've approached the bolts at the top of that crag. And so the very first thing I want to do when I get to these bolts that I try to train all my clients is go ahead and clip in your personal protection. So in this case, I'm using two 60-centimeter slings with each with a locking carabiner in this case. Okay, and so now I'm clipped in and locked, and so no matter what I do from this point, I'm going to be safe. Okay, there's not going to be any fatal consequences as long as I'm clipped in. I may drop my rope, I may drop some equipment, which won't be good. I can embarrass myself, I could potentially cause some hazards below, but I'm not going to fall to my death clipped in like this. Okay, and I won't unclip until I know I'm safe to be lowered. Okay, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and set up my top rope system. One more thing I will say, if you're kind of on a sheer cliff and you feel unsafe to clip in first, you can put a quick draw on one of these anchors and clip your rope into it before you clip these anchors on. Okay? But anyway, now I want to set up my top rope system. I have a pre-assembled quad, and I highly recommend that you pre-assemble your quad or whatever top rope system that you're going to use, especially in single pitch. I'm going to go ahead and use two non-locking carabiners on the bolt hangers directly here. You don't necessarily have to use the bolt hangers if you think that that won't be could be a hazard for the way the carabiners are loaded or something. You can use the rings. I'm just going to use the bolt hangers in this example, and I hook on my pre-assembled quad. Okay, and then I want to take at least two, I think the textbook way is 3 strands for a quad, but not 4 strands, right? And hook in 2 carabiners that are opposing. So you can see that, you can kind of see there the gates are opposing each other. Onto the quad, clip in my top rope into both carabiners. Lock those, and then go ahead and ask my belayer to take, which they will then pull my rope tight. And from this point, I can go ahead, and what I do normally is if I feel my belayer pulling this tight, I know that I'm safe. But what I go ahead and do is I take one of my anchors off and clip it onto the top rope master point and lock, and I take my other one off. You can do them both if you want to. I normally will just do one in this case, and then I go ahead and weight that top rope system before I unclip the final one. So if I feel that my belayer has me, I'm weighted on this top rope, then I can go ahead and unscrew that anchor and go ahead and tell them to lower me, in which they'll lower me. Okay? And from there, if I'm lowered and I'm on the ground, the system that will exist is these 2 non-locking carabiners, this quad with the top rope going between 2 locking carabiners, and now this can be climbed on by my party. They can bounce around. The great thing about the quad is the climbers can bounce around one side to the other, have fun, whatever, and then when they're ready to move on to the next climb, I will climb back up to the top. So now here I come My belayer will belay me, climbing back up to the top of front yard mountain here. And now I need to take this top rope system down. So again, first part of the procedure before I do anything is go ahead and clip in with both of my personal anchors. Okay? The next thing to go ahead and do is take down my top rope system. I can go ahead and tell my belayer to give some slack. But I still let them keep me on belay, and I'll show you why. I'm going to show you two ways to clean this route. Okay. So here's a great way to take off a top rope quad so that you don't drop anything. So you notice I unclipped the rope, but I kept the carabiners on the quad. If I keep them on the quad, there's no way they can drop to the bottom. Okay, I don't want to drop anything. I unclip one non-locking carabiner and I clip it onto my harness. Now there's no way that this device can drop as I unclipped the other carabiner. So even if I dropped it, it's not going anywhere. Everything is going to stay right here. And then I can take these locking carabiners and clip them onto my harness as well, just so they're not swinging around. Okay, so now I've got everything cleaned. Okay, I'm still on my locked personal anchors. And there's two ways that I can get to the bottom. So I'm going to show you the faster, safer way first, but there's some different thoughts about this at different crags, and I'll let you know what those are as I do it. But what you do is you take the top rope, or the rope, and the climbing rope in this case, and I go ahead and put it through the rings, the rappel rings, and I pull that through. And all this time, I can tell my belayer to give me a little bit of slack to complete this. And then I tie an overhand, or I'm sorry, a figure 8 on a bite. Okay. And then I can clip that to my belay loop. Okay. Now I can go ahead and tell my belayer to take, and they will take, and that pulls that tight. Okay. And then I can untie my figure of 8 on my original climbing loop, pull that strand through, okay, and you can see now I am belayed from my belayer, and my the climbing rope is going through the 2 rings to my belt, okay, so that can be weighted and I can be safe. And so from that point I can ask my belayer to take and relieve the tension on my personal anchors. So now I've tested the system, and I can unscrew my personal anchors. And I can ask my belayer to go ahead and lower me, which they will lower me, and the climbing rope will pass through the rappel rings in that manner as I go back down to the ground. Now, some people will say, well, this causes some wear on the rings, which it does over the course of many, many years. Being lowered in this fashion will cause wear on rings. However, there's many parks now where this is the common practice, and this is also what's highlighted on the AMGA website as the proper way to be lowered off of a top rope anchor system that's been cleaned, because although there's wear and tear on the anchors, there is significantly less risk of falling and potentially having a fatal fall in the case that the other procedure for cleaning anchors that I'm going to show you is not done properly. So yes, there is some trade-off of wear and tear, but there's many groups and organizations and even the parks themselves monitoring these rings, but it's extremely safer. So that's something to consider. It's also something to be mindful of when you're at a park. Is this an acceptable way to lower? Many parks now have lobster claws instead of rappel rings that you can lower off of directly for this very reason. Okay, so that's the easiest and also fastest and also safest way to be lowered off of top rope or 2 bolted anchors that a top rope set it was on. Okay, the second way to be or to lower yourself off of a freshly cleaned anchor station is to rappel off. This is a more involved process, but if done properly and in the sequence I'm going to show you, you will always have a secondary backup and will never be at risk of human error as long as you follow the procedure that has secondary backups within it, which I'll highlight. Okay, so the very first thing you need to do is you need to get your climbing rope through the rappel rings. Okay, but your first risk is that you can potentially drop the rope doing this. So the very first thing we want to do is pull up about 15 feet of rope or so and just tie an overhand on a bight or a figure 8 on a bight and clip it to your belt. Now, no matter what I do, the rope's not going to fall to the ground. The second thing I'm going to do is go ahead and untie the rope to my climbing harness. And you can see I'm back to this situation of top rope anchor system cleaned, but I'm still bolted in and both bolts are locked, or both personal anchors are locked. And I'm going to go ahead and take this end of the rope that I was tied to, and again, if I were to drop this, it's hooked to my belt, so it's not going to go far. I'm not going to lose track of the climbing rope. Go ahead and pull that through, and then you can tie off a barrel knot at the end of the rope. And this is going to make sure that the system stays closed. Okay. At this point, if you haven't already, go ahead and tell your belayer that they can take you off belay completely, because now you're going to have to pull a great deal amount of the rope through, and you can also go ahead and tell them to knot the other end with a barrel knot as well, so the system's totally closed so you can't rappel off the end. Okay. So from this point, I will go ahead and pull through the climbing rope. Oop. So yeah, I dropped a carabiner there and could have hurt somebody. I'll untie my rope that was hooked to that carabiner, and I'll keep pulling that through until I get to the halfway point of this rope. Okay, now this rope, I'm not going to go all the way that way because we're just on the ground. This is an example. But now, if you can imagine, I've got the rope at halfway. I've got both ends on the ground now. If it was a long way down that needed to be cleared, I would have gathered the rope as I pulled it through in my other hand or on my lap and then tossed it. Okay. But anyway, for this example, just know that you have to pull through the rope to get the halfway point to here. Okay, and have both ends on the ground from that point. Now, the next thing I need to do is get my rappel set up. So the way I've shown a rappel set up before is with a 120 centimeter sling that has some knots in it. Okay, so that's what I have here, already prearranged, 2 knots. I'll show you why I do 2 in a second. And I will girth hitch that to my belay loop as well. And on this end out here, this is just my safety knot, and I can go ahead and clip this to one of the 2 anchors. Now you can see this is kind of loose, and this is why I have 2 knots, so that I can control the length of it. So I can take this carabiner on the end, clip within the second knot, and now it's a lot more tight. Okay, it's not super tight, but it's tight enough where if I were to fall, I'm only going to fall maybe an inch or 2, and I can lock that in. Okay. The second thing I'm going to need is a third hand, which I have here. And I will put that below the 120 centimeter sling. I have that there. And I can go ahead and grab. Now, it's not the case here on Front Yard Mountain, but if this rope was hanging, this rope would be heavy to pull. And I would be at risk of not being able to get the rope in properly to my ATC because it's pulling down. So I can pull, or I can hold this rope with the third hand by going ahead and tying my auto block. So I do 3 times around, put that in the carabiner, lock. Okay, that's biting. And now I can pull the rope through, and now this part is not weighted, and I can get my rappel set up. The last thing you need for rappelling is an ATC. And again, this is why I have this second knot in the 120 centimeter sling. So I go ahead and hook the carabiner in there first. So now I don't have to worry about fooling with that. And I take the ATC, put the two ropes between it, or put the two ropes into it, or the two strands of rope I should say. Go ahead and clip that, along with the stainless steel wire through the ATC. And now I can pull that tight, I can pull it up so that the weight is on this system instead of my personal anchor system. And I can pull this third hand up. Normally this third hand you would just have to kind of slide it up because the rope would be heavy, but since the ground is right here, that's not the case. And I can actually get all my weight on this rappel system before I start to remove my personal anchors. So you can see I have everything in a row of the order I put it on from top to bottom. So the top part is my two 60 centimeter personal anchors. The middle part is the 120 centimeter sling that's got the rappel set up. And then the bottom is the third hand. And that's the order you want them in. Top personal anchor, middle 120 centimeter sling, or whatever extended rappel system you're going to use. Bottom third hand. Okay, and that allows for the most smooth operation. So now that I have this weighted, the rappel weighted, I can take off my personal anchors. But look, even if I were to mess up still, I still have this extended rappel as a backup. That's the beauty of systems like this that I just showed you. Is that you can still have a tertiary check of your rappel system before you come off the anchors. Okay, this rappel looks good. It's still weighted. I can go ahead and take off this extender. Okay. Clip that to my belt. And now I'm ready to rappel down back to my party. Okay. Now once I get down to my party, I would go ahead and come off rappel. Pretend like I'm on the ground at this point. Take my third hand off. And from this point you're ready to pull the climbing rope back through these rings. Don't forget to untie the stopper knot before you start that. You're going to be climbing the route again and go off to my next climb. Hey, I hope that video was useful for you on how to set up a top rope and clean the system. Hey, thanks so much for the support you've given this channel. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to our channel. The channel is experiencing a lot of growth right now, which is great. I'm so thankful for it. It motivates me to put out more videos for you guys. And hey, I look forward to seeing you out there on the crag for next time. Hey, leave any comments or questions or any suggestions for videos. This one was a suggested video, and I really love doing it and giving you guys pointers on things that you need to be safe outside. Hey, have a good one. Catch you later.